Did you think a decade ago you're going to have a hamburger restaurant in New York City?
Hell no. That's why I was told about that. I mean, it's only restaurants are for idiots, you know.
I have like a million questions for you because I didn't even know about the burger thing until, a lot later. I don't know if that was a thing back then, like a decade ago, but I certainly didn't know about it. And now it's obviously everywhere. Like you're the most famous burger person in the world. By the way, why were you in Argentina?
I mean, the short story is that I did an event there. The longer story is that I did a consultation there 6 years ago, got invited back to do another event and another event. And I started teaching people around the world about the American hamburger. And that was one of those things where between the last time I was there, which is pre-pandemic, and this past week, like my fan base was already pretty big to begin with, and it just exploded where people were like, I love you, Motz, and like guys, girls, no matter what, were like throwing themselves at me. I had to have security. I had to have security detail to make sure I got through like certain events. Like if I had to go to the bathroom, I had to have 2 security guards and to walk me through the crowd, be like selfie, 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 selfie. I'm like,
that's nuts,
crazy. That's what I was doing there. I was cooking and for a big event there called Burger Palooza.
How did you get into burgers? I don't think we ever talked about burgers when I saw you at Bark. Like, how did this happen?
It's true. So when I knew you way back in the day, which is now a decade ago, right? I was a filmmaker. I still sort of am a filmmaker, but I was a union DP. I was in Local 600, cameraman and director of photography, shooting TV commercials. I was looking for something interesting to do. 23 years ago, this year, 23 years ago, I ended up making a film about hamburgers called Hamburger America. And it was just a goofy, fun documentary of a light look at the American hamburger, but through the eyes of 8 people who had sort of kept the burger alive in America. And just kind of the weird methods, like one was a deep fried burger, one was a steamed burger, one was apparently the oldest burger in America. And so they're just fun stories. And I ended up making this film called Hamburger America, which came out in 2004 and kind of picked up some weird steam with with some fans and picked up a fan base, super fans. And then it got picked up by somebody who was in a publishing company, said, can you make a guidebook? So we made a guidebook of 100 places called Hamburger America, same name. It became a second guidebook, became a TV show. It just kept snowballing. So by the time I knew you, I'd already done a hamburger TV show, I'm sure, because that was 13 years ago now. We did a burger show on Travel Channel called Burgerland. So there was a burger thing going on. Just it wasn't as blown out as it is now these days.
But I mean, so at some point there was some impetus of I want to make a burger documentary 23 years ago. What is it about burgers? Where did that come from?
It was a complete fluke. It was an accident. I could have chosen diapers. I could have chosen weather. I mean, I could have chosen anything. Somehow I was talking to somebody about how there aren't enough food documentaries. Food Network had just started the year before. Mm-hmm. And they were looking for some content. I was like, we're going to shoot food? No one does that. No one was shooting food back then. And so I had actually just seen a documentary about hot dogs on PBS. And I was like, whoa, no one's ever even touched the hamburger. No one's touched this. And the problem is that nobody took the hamburger seriously enough to make a documentary, about hamburgers. What are we talking about? This is dumb food. Back then, it was not taken seriously at all. A lot of it was seen as frozen crap. Around the world, the hamburger was seen as definitely this is the stupid thing that the Americans imported to exported to the rest of the world. And it was not taken seriously at all. And so I realized it could, we could put a lens on it and see what happens. And I spent 3 years working on this documentary and came up with a cute little thing that people, I think, really appreciated. And the people who actually was filming them was weird because even when I was filming these people who had these hamburger places, they looked at me like I was a weirdo. It's just a hamburger, dude. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But it's so good. It's so exciting. And you've been doing it every day for the same thing. They're like, what's wrong with this guy?
Why do you think people look so down upon the burger? I mean, there's so many foods around the world you think of that have some, prestige might be the wrong word, but I mean, there's tons of things. An empanada, bratwurst. What is it about a burger that you think was so tough to sort of get around?
The hamburger is seeing a bit of a renaissance, obviously.
Now, yeah.
Now it is. But back then, it had its bell curve. It was seen as something that was tasty, but I don't trust it. And then there was a moment when it really wasn't trusted when up in Sinclair's book, The Jungle came out, and then nobody trusted burgers anymore. They're like, no, stay away. That's only an idiot would eat a burger. but it still was underlying. It was always there. It didn't go away. For 20 years, it survived as just wage earner, blue collar food served from like a questionable like truck or like a cart outside of a factory. People wouldn't do that. And then all of a sudden, 1921 specifically, White Castle changed the whole attitude of the attitude towards the hamburger for people when they cleaned up their act. That's what White Castle, white signifying cleanliness, and castle signifying strength. And they built this brand. People could, and anybody could trust a hamburger at that point. And that's when the hamburger had this huge resurgence or a surgence that surged all the way through the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, fast food model in the 60s and the 70s. And then the freezing methods and the garbage came in, and the hamburger just was completely decimated. And it was seen as garbage again. It was seen as like, no, it's not an old-timey hamburger. You can go get an old-timey hamburger at an old-timey place, but is it safe? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just the image of the hamburger went completely down. And it really was the latest resurgence that put the hamburger back on the map again. So we're seeing, it's almost like a VH1 storyteller's story, the rise, the fall, the rise again of the hamburger.
Yeah. You've probably been this, I guarantee you've been there, this place in New Haven, Louis Lunch, right?
Of course, yeah.
Is that supposed to be like the oldest or the birth or something? You always hear all these stories around what's the first one.
So right, they were in Hamburger America, the film. I put them in the film because at the time we all considered that to be the ones who invented the hamburger, the ones who had the oldest hamburger in America. The second part was true. They still have the longest continually operating hamburger restaurant in America, now at 124 years. They've been serving hamburgers for 124 years. No one else in America can say that consistently. But what happens with the internet and all this kind of stuff, we're starting to see as we start to like scan old newspapers, and everybody is like trying to put everything on the internet. So the internet is just enormous. And one thing we discovered is that every couple of months, we have an earlier date for the arrival of the hamburger. We don't know when it was invented, but we're starting to see mentions in the newspaper. The oldest one I have right now is the Reno, Nevada Evening Gazette, which goes back to, I think, 1892, April 1892. And there's a mention of a guy serving hamburger sandwiches at his bar to get people to come and drink more.
Makes sense.
The Louis Lunch claim is in 1900. So this is 8 years before that. So we know that they didn't invent the hamburger.
What is that machine they use? It's like a crazy machine they use to like...
Right. It's actually, it's an old-timey steak broiler.
That's right.
It's gas that goes in left and right and cooks it from the sides. It's also, the steak or the hamburger is captured in this sort of like weird, it's almost like one of those things you use for grilling fish. It's added grate that sandwiches the fish inside, and that slides in sideways into this oven, this side broiler, and cooks it. All the juice drips down, the fat, unfortunately. And you end up with this cooked piece of beef, or in this case, a hamburger. They've been doing it the same way for years. Somebody asked me, like, why does anybody else do this? I'm like, because it's kind of a ridiculous way to make a burger.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. And it's also...
They just do it because that's the way they've always done it,
Yeah. I've seen a bunch of your shows, and every time I see one, I'm like, there can't be any more types of burgers. And every time I see you have some other new version of a burger. One, how the hell do you find all these different versions? I didn't even know. I bet most people have no idea that there's all these different types of burgers.
True.
Is it just traveling? And then also, like, what, maybe just like for, I'm assuming, most people that listen to this show are restaurant folks, chefs, restaurant operators, that kind of thing. But like, I also would like, what are some of the types of burgers that we probably don't know of?
I mean, I keep learning about new ones. I think literally once a week, I learn about a new one.
What surprised you like lately?
Lately? Oh, I found this burger in Detroit called the Original Marcus Hamburger. And it's the weirdest combination of it's a hot dog bun. And these guys make these burgers that are in the shape of like a long, flat hot dog. It's almost like, imagine like a long rectangular hot dog. But it's a long rectangular hamburger that goes into a hot dog bun perfectly. And no one really knows why. They were just trying to be different, whatever it was, like 60, 70 years ago. I just discovered them just as over the summer. I couldn't believe it. And I'd never heard of them before. And the burger was excellent. It was so freaking good, But I keep learning more about histories. And what I'm learning also is that it's not just about the regional burger, or like, oh, here's a green chili cheeseburger in New Mexico, and here's a butter burger in Wisconsin. But I'm actually starting to put the pieces together. I'm actually beginning I know so much about the hamburger, but it's a lot of disparate, separated knowledge. And what's happening, I've noticed, is that I'm starting to like draw lines and parallels between different burgers in the country. Perfect example is that one of the oldest sauces in America is something called comeback sauce. Now in America, we know comeback sauce is it's like a mayo-based barbecue sauce called comeback sauce. But in the early days, which would have been like the 1940s, 30s, and 40s, it was actually a hickory smoked barbecue sauce with a tomato-based barbecue sauce. So it's like a barbecue sauce. If you've ever been to the Apple Pan in LA, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a hickory smoked sauce that is on the burger. It's like almost like a hickory smoked ketchup in a way, but it's way better than ketchup. And I realized that people know the Apple Pan, people know the place called the Goody Goody in Tampa, people know a place called Johnny's, serves something called a Theta Burger. But they don't know until I did the math that all these places are connected. They're all connected, and there's a huge history to it. So I have so much. I keep the point is
How
I keep
are they connected?
learning.
Like, what do you mean when you say they're connected?
Well, they're actually connected literally through family. That at some point I did the math. Well, I didn't do the math. I did the math with a writer in Oklahoma who figured out that the same family that opened up this one spot, what's called the Dolores, is gone now. They actually made this sauce and they made it in their restaurant. Somebody had the great idea to open up a hamburger joint in LA, which is the Apple Pan. Not even it's a long. It's so complicated. It's unbelievable. But they ended up bringing the sauce there, made it very famous locally in LA. Then another place opened up in Tampa called the Goody Goody. It's basically the same sauce. It's changed over the years, but it has the same lineage. And then this place in Oklahoma, which still has the same sauce. They're all connected. There's no end to this burger knowledge. It keeps going on and on and on. Truly amazing.
So is it really American? Like, it had to come. Somebody had to have brought this here from another country because we're American, right?
That's true. So it didn't start as it wasn't native to this country. It came in as it was ethnic food in the beginning. It was an ethnic German food. That's another reason why it probably wasn't embraced in the beginning, because it was seen as like, the Germans brought it over, these German immigrants brought it over. In the same way we might look at like a taco today, or even or pupusas, like, well, I'm afraid of ordering a pupusas. I don't speak Spanish. There's certain things that keep Americans who eat, very standard foods away from ethnic foods. My Indian food might be too spicy, and it might make me feel sick or something, until you take that leap of faith in food. You probably are somewhat timid about approaching things. That's probably the same thing that happened to the hamburger 150 years ago. People saw it as something that was ethnic. Not for me. I'm going to stick with my regular, good old American diet. Which is funny to think that the hamburger at some point was not an accepted American food. The reason that it became totally American was because when it came to the U.S. from Germany, it was actually served on a plate. It was something called a frikadellen, and it was a hand patted bunch of ground beef.
You said frikadellen?
It's called a frikadellen. Yeah, it's like a descendant. It's like an early version of the frikadellen, which is something that you can still get in Germany and Denmark and some of the Nordic countries. But it's basically it's a hamburger. It's ground beef. It usually has some kind of spices inside, and it's served on a plate with gravy or served with onions, basically. But there's no bun. So when it came to the U.S., it came through the port of Hamburg. People had to leave that at the port of Hamburg to get to the U.S. when they were leaving. And when they arrived in the U.S., they found that Germans before them had brought with them the frikadellen, but they couldn't call it the frikadellen in New York, so they called it steak in the style of Hamburg, which was Hamburg, Germany. And then, of course, one thing led to the next. It became known as a Hamburg steak. And I believe, and I've done all the different histories again. I've done the math and looked at all the different histories that I've read and seen out there. I believe that as Germans started to migrate west and find land because they wanted to farm and make their lives better, they also went to state fairs in the Midwest. And at state fairs, you'd go and buy livestock and look at equipment, but you also had to eat somehow. And a lot of places served ethnic food because there were ethnic Germans there. And sure enough, there was the Hamburg steak, or steak in the style of Hamburg, and it was served on a plate. And we don't know who invented it or when it happened, but we do know that the hot dog, hear me out, the hot dog predates, you know this, Josh, the hot dog predates the hamburger by 8 years. And can you imagine if you're having the other ethnic German food, the Frankfurter, and you're selling a Hamburg steak on a plate with a knife and a fork, and you see a hot dog walk by, and you're like, holy shit, that's it. It's portable. We can make it portable. Why did we do this? And then we know that over the span of like 2 or 3 years, at all these state fairs, transient state fairs, transient food stalls started to serve their Hamburg steak on bread. And that's how it became American.
Makes sense. There's actually a really good, I don't know what you call it. I think they call it a hamburger. So at Momofuku Co. in New York, they do this. I don't know if you had it. It's like a burger, but it's in a hot dog bun.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's,
No, I haven't.
I think there's foie gras in it too, maybe. It's insanely good.
To get
But
the
it's in
idea
the
from
shape
Marcus?
of it's in the shape of a hot dog, but it's in
Yeah.
but it's a burger.
Yeah.
And you can get it at the bar co. And I don't know if they have it at the really, really good. I think maybe it's like short rib and something else, but maybe they got it from there.
They probably got it from Marcus. I don't know, because I don't know who would go to Marcus. The place is between two huge graveyards in East Detroit.
Yeah, so, I'll have to find that. It's so insane, man. Does your son, is he like as into hamburgers as you, or is he like, dude, dad, can you just chill out on the burgers for a minute?
Everyone says the same thing. No one is into hamburgers as much as I am, but he gets it. He's trying to understand. He does like it though. He likes the burgers I make. He does say that I make the best burgers, which is good. Good start.
That's good. Did you teach him how already?
Yeah.
So I want to like learn a lot about this restaurant because first of all, it looks like it's slammed all the time.
It is not all the time. Not all the time. I don't want people think they can't get there.
Yeah, well,
don't come on a Saturday. Saturday's insane.
So I got a bunch of questions for you because I've seen in some of the videos, right? You portion scoop the burgers, at least in your videos. That's at home, right? Which I was like, oh, that's genius. You don't have to pre-portion the burgers. Do you do that at the restaurant too? Do you actually? You just have it in a big mass and then you scoop them to order.
Yeah, everything we do in the restaurant is based on hamburger history. So I like to tell people that we haven't invented anything. We haven't done anything unique. Everything we're doing is totally ununique. It's totally normal and not original. Because what we're really doing is we're trying to make sure that we are doing things that were tried and true, and still to this day, in most places that are over 100 years old are doing the same damn thing. Why would you change a thing? I've learned from them. Everything we do, the way we cook the burger, the way we serve the burger, the way we wrap it up, the way we prep the burger ahead of time by scooping it and portioning it in balls. These are all things that I've seen at places around America in all of my studies and travels in the last 20 years.
Yeah. It does seem like, what was the one I saw? I think it was you and like a super fan. I forget who the guy was. But you were, he made it pretty well. And then you had all these sort of nuances that, so even some of it was like, that's pretty smart, like steaming the bun, but stacking it seems like, there's this traditionalist piece of what you do, but then you definitely have been iterating on how to make it perfect over time.
Yeah.
Are there like non-negotiables of a good burger that you have? Yeah. What are they for you?
Well, I mean, this is the whole lot. I don't even know where to begin. I always tell people that if you're trying to make a great burger, don't use too much creativity. It's like, seriously, honestly, I mean, hey, you can go do whatever you want. You can put freaking, mac and cheese on there, but it's going to be awful. It's going to taste terrible. It's not going to be good because, the problem with the mac and cheese burger, perfect example, it's a bit of a stunt. It is a total stunt. I know the guy who actually invented it, and he said it was a stunt. And he doesn't even like the burger himself. But people say, look at the burger, like, ooh, a cheeseburger, ooh, cheesy mac and cheese. And they think of them separately until they put it in their mouth and they go, oh, that's not what I don't want that in my mouth at all. It's terrible. It's a terrible combination of textures and flavors. So I would tell people to think about what somebody else would have done before you. Think about the place that makes, 10,000 a week in the middle of nowhere. They have been doing it for 75 years. Take a page out of their journal, out of their playbook. Keep it simple. Keep it very simple and don't try to reinvent the wheel too much.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like you got to get super hard sear on the burger. You got to have a little crustiness of toast of the bread. And then, like don't melt the cheese too much.
Well, you're only talking about one type of burger, though.
Yes, I know.
Every type of burger out there has some weird.
I know. I think that's more of a smash burger, but yeah, I know. There's also so many kinds of burgers. I mean, at Bark, we would buy a whole steer.
I remember that.
Sometimes we would get the ribeye to this butcher shop in Chelsea Market, and the rest we would just take, and it would be like everything. The short rib, the brisket, the shank, the chuck, and all of it would get ground into the burger. I don't know if that was a good idea or not. It tasted good, and then we stopped doing that. It actually didn't taste as good. But I think you use Schweidenssons, and maybe you have like a custom blend or something. But tell me about like your thoughts on the blend.
So nothing custom. We use 75-25 straight chuck primal. That's it. Chuck is perfect for a burger, and only because it's the one piece of the animal that you can put into it. You can take a full 20-pound chuck, put it in the grinder, comes out the other side, put it through again, one more time, and you end up with the perfect hamburger meat. The ratio is perfect. I mean, you don't have to add any fat at all usually. That's why chuck. If you use any other cut of the animal, it's either going to have too much fat, not enough fat, or it's going to be a part of the animal that doesn't really taste good in a burger anyway. Chuck is perfect for a burger. That's why most places use chuck. It was sort of a poo-pooed beef cut for many, many years, unfortunately, only because it was inexpensive.
Yeah.
And now, since everybody's caught on to like the beauty of chuck, it's now, of course, the price is skyrocketed.
Yeah. So Hamburger America, the restaurant, not the show, is a smash burger, right? The style, right?
Yeah, we have 2 burgers in the menu. They're both smash burgers. Well, one is straight classic. We call it the classic smash burger. It is old school. It goes back to the beginning of time. It goes back 100 years. It's a burger that was literally just put on a surface, smashed thin, usually seasoned with nothing more than salt. We use a little bit of like a special, like we use Lowry seasoned salt.
Oh, really?
Just give it a little bit of a punch, a little boom.
That's cool.
And again, it's just something I picked up from a bunch of places in America.
Yeah.
They use a little bit of seasoned salt on their burgers. And it just gives just a little bit of a wow, a little bit of like just opening up, We serve it on a buttered, toasted Martin's potato roll with American cheese. We use a really, really good American cheese.
What brand do you use?
We use something called Bun Guards.
I got to write that down.
Bun Guards. I don't even pronounce that right, but it's like somebody the other day was like, wow, this cheese is so good. I'm like, it's real cheese. But it's really good American cheese. It's like the mildest cheddar you could ever dream of, basically. It's so good. And we just keep it very simple. It's seared pretty hot on the flat top, a little bit of seasoned salt, great American cheese on a toasted bun, and you're done. We serve it also all the way, which is where we put like a little tiny bit of diced raw onion, a small swirl of mustard, and 2 pickles. And that flavor profile is very, very old school American, 20s, 30s in America. The mustard pickle onion, also known as MOP, mustard onion pickle, MOP. We use French's yellow mustard. Stuff I've seen out there, nobody used. I mean, there's some places that I know that use spicy mustard or old, but I'd prefer to use the classic, good old French's yellow mustard. And that flavor profile is kind of perfect. We had Neil deGrasse Tyson on the show, and we're trying to figure out what burger would we make for him. That we were talking about what burger would you want to preserve for the future generations? Like, what would be the platonic ideal for a cheeseburger in America? I said, let's make him the classic smash all the way, and tell him that this is the burger that we should somehow, if you could like set it into space and tell other cultures, other worlds that this is an American hamburger. That's the one. He took one bite and he was like, wow, that's really good. And he ate the whole thing on the show. I was so happy. The other burger we have on the menu is something called the Oklahoma Fried Onion Burger. And it's a smash burger, but it's not smashed as thin as the classic smash. There's no lacy edge on it or anything. And there's very little Maillard actually on the second side. We basically just take a wad of thin sliced sweet onion and press it into the portion ball of beef. It's an equal size onion to beef, basically ratio.
Oh, wow.
And it gets sort of smashed and commingles with the beef.
Mm-hmm.
And this just then begins one of the greatest food science experiments of all time. I think second only to mayonnaise. Okay. Where the onions start to render, the beef starts to render, and you have this crazy commingling of onion juice and tallow.
Yeah.
You flip it over, straight kosher salt. You flip it over, and the whole thing starts to steam. And you put the buns on top of that arrangement with the cheese, and the whole thing becomes this steaming mass of flavors, which is unmatched. Somebody in Argentina, I was just cooking in Argentina, and they said, we believe that your burger has magic. As it's not magic.
Yeah.
It's just science.
So you use kosher salt for that one, and then you use Lowry's for the other one.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's it, yeah.
And then do you sear it and then season it, or you season it right away? Or
no, it's true. We actually sear it first.
Yep.
And then we season the side that's not flipped, and then the flip side gets 30 seconds of the commingling of that rendered beef with the Lowry's really makes it go boom.
Yep. So you said sweet onions, like a Vidalia or a Walla Walla or something?
Well, we try to find Walla Walla if I'm cooking in the West, but in the restaurant we use sweet onion. Some of our best onions come from Peru. Peruvian onions are the best onions in the world, I think. Just saying. And I wish we could have them all year round. We can't because of the markets, the way they're moving.
Yeah.
So a lot of time we get sweet onion from the U.S., or we're getting 6 months out of the year, we're getting sweet onions from Peru. The other 6 months of the year, we're getting it from Mexico and parts of America.
Yep. You don't get like that soggy, like the soggy bottom of the bun?
Yeah.
How do you prevent that?
Well, if you've got a lot of beef rendered going on, it'll just soak the bottom of the bun. The way we do is for the classic smash, we toast them. We have a toasting It's like a huge
Yeah.
toaster you use. It's a butter wheel on it. Basically, it's buttered and then toasted. Big upright things. We took that out of the Shake Shack playbook.
Yeah.
We used actually the same ones they used for many years. Toasting is the best way. You create as remember Josh Sharkey used to say, you need to toast the bun to create a prophylactic barrier for the heel of the bun.
Yeah. Yeah. We did the same thing with the hot dog bun, the top slice, toasting on both sides. You must slice them pretty thin. Do you use like a meat slicer to slice them?
I can't say we have. It's a secret. People have kind of figured it out now, but we have a fairly expensive machine that does it for us. Not for us. We have to still have to load the thing up. Yeah. But if you're a chef and you've got a lot of equipment in your kitchen, you know what we're using.
Yeah.
In the old days, I used to use, in the beginning, I used a mandolin. You lose your fingertips on that one. Yeah. So I moved to I bought an inexpensive deli slicer. And the deli slicer, I mean, you're talking about each onion, medium-sized onion, it was 120 pumps to get for one onion. Yeah. It was 60 pumps for each onion. Yep. And then, back and forth, 120. So it was so much work. Now we're not doing that anymore.
They make automated ones of those, but they
don't work.
The water and also just like too much water comes out of the onion.
Oh, yeah, they do make automated ones. This is true. But we're still experimenting with, right now we're going through 1,200 pounds of onions a week right now.
Jeez.
It's insane. And that's only one of we sell both the burgers equally. So that's really for only half the burger sales gets 1,200 pounds of onions. It's kind of
crazy. Did you think a decade ago you're going to have a hamburger restaurant in New York City?
Hell no. That's why I was told about that. It's only restaurants are for idiots, especially if you don't know what you're doing. If you're not a restaurateur, you don't open a restaurant, dude. I mean, it's like, there's so much work and there's so many things that I didn't know about until I got involved. And a friend of mine came to me and he said, your product is so good, you need to open a restaurant. I was like, everyone tells me that. Only idiots open restaurants. He said, no, you need to go find a restaurant group that wants to work with you. I said, oh, hey, that's a good idea. So that's how I found the guys that I'm working with now.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So I work with the Schnipper brothers.
Yeah.
Great guy, just top-notch guys. I'm a trustworthy guy. I'm an honest guy. They're two unbelievably trustworthy guys. We had them checked out. As a friend of mine who's in the meatpacking business was like, I'm gonna check these guys out.
You mean like above board checked out, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean yeah. It's hard to say. I don't really know what she was going for, but she came back. She said, I found some stuff on the. No. I said, I just want to let you know, I did some research on these guys, and we found nothing. These guys are clean. They're clean as a whistle.
Well, I mean, you remember the spots, right? The Schnippers. Do they still have any of the Schnippers?
They still do, yeah. They still have 3 locations. Two locations.
There's one in like New York Times building, isn't there?
Yeah, so that was the original location. This is actually why I wanted to work with them. It's a good point because when I started talking to this other friend of mine who's a financial guy about opening a restaurant, he said, find a restaurant group. I said, I know the Schnippers brothers. And I thought to myself, yeah, you know what? These are the guys I want to work with. These guys are pretty gutsy. They sold their very successful company, Hale and Hearty Soups.
That's right.
Back in the day, whatever that was, like 12, 13, 14 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And they took the money and they opened up their first location in the freaking New York Times building. I'm like, of course I want to work with these guys. These guys have guts, man. And so I went to them and I said, I don't think it's you guys. You guys are huge. I want to open a small burger stand. Can you think of anybody who'd want to work with me on it and be my restaurant group? And they were like, we'll do it. We'll definitely do it. And I was like, no. I didn't mean you, but yeah, you're serious? You want to get involved with this crazy? And they said, yeah. They said, we're looking for something, new and different. And we think you got a good brand. Yeah. And they were right.
Well, I mean, I think that's, it's one of the most underrated or underestimated pieces of running a good business. I mean, obviously you have to have a great product, which clearly you have, but storytelling is really important. For any business and for a restaurant, particularly, especially in New York, there's 1 million burger restaurants. Yeah. Like why this one? And it's so clear, like everybody knows you. And more importantly, everybody knows how much you love burgers and they know all this background of burgers. So you're not just going there to eat a burger. It's like this whole, more than experience, like this feeling of like you're getting this history, you're learning something fun. You're kind of wacky when you're there, I bet.
Oh no! A little kid today asked me, "What's the most fun thing to do here? What's the most fun thing you get to do at the restaurant?" I said, "Honestly, I get to talk to everyone at the counter. Yeah. I get to stand here and make burgers and talk to everyone at the counter. What we did was we designed the restaurant so that if you're working at the counter on the griddle, we built a griddle into the counter, basically. So I'm always facing forward, always looking at everything that's going. I can see the street. I can see the park across the street. I can see people who are coming in. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you again. Come on, grab a seat, grab a stool right here. I get to talk to everybody facing forward. I refused when we designed this restaurant to have my griddle be on the back wall. Everybody has this design of, we got to put it on the back wall because that's where the hoods are. And I said, I refused to have my back to my people for the rest of my life. And so I said, we need to figure this out. So, it's expensive. It's complicated. It's like, I don't care. I don't care. This restaurant is not about, saving money just because, we can't figure out how to do this. Let's figure it out. And we actually did. It took us a long time. It took a lot of different brains. And we managed to make it happen. So the most fun I have is I get to be there and watch people get excited about hamburgers and ask me questions. We have one whole wall when you walk in the restaurant that is just a huge piece of hamburger history. There's 100 photos in the wall with each one has a caption and describes, the little pieces of hamburger history.
Yeah. I feel like you could open a living burger museum where like you can actually go eat all the burgers,
We did.
What? Really?
That's what it is, basically.
Oh,
Think
yeah,
about it.
Yeah.
So you walk in and you have the 2 burgers in the menu, but we have one of the most unique LTOs in the restaurant business right now, where once a month and literally like faithfully, once a month, we change the 3rd burger on the menu. It's called the monthly burger special.
I saw that.
Yeah,
it's the Theta right now, right? It's the Theta burger, right?
No, right now we're doing the Doodle burger right now from the Yankee Doodle in New Haven, which is important because the Doodle closed 16 years ago. So all of a sudden, all these Yaleys are coming in and eating the burger and tearing up. And they're thinking, I haven't had this burger since I was in college in the 60s or the 70s. And people are tearing up and feeling very emotional about this burger because it means a lot to them because we got it right. We got every detail of the Doodle burger totally correct. Right down the little, there was a sauce they had, red relish. We got the red relish right, but we also put the red relish in a small paper ramekin, the right size, the exact size they use a Doodle. So you just take the thing, you squeeze it onto the top of the burger.
That's so
and
cool.
That's what you would have done.
Is it pepper relish?
It's like a pepper relish, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a straightforward, B&G. It's a store shelf, shelf stable product, but it's the exact same stuff they used. And our job is to, for each one of these monthly burger specials, to actually get it as accurate as possible and get in the right stuff from wherever that was from or whatever. There was same cheese, the same bun. And the way we do that is to sort of add to the provenance of the moment is we always start every month with a press conference and we fly in whoever that person is, whether it's from the Theta Burger. We brought in Rick Haynes from Oklahoma City, brought in Jack Keller from Keller's Drive-In in Dallas. And they come in, they're there for a press conference. We make the burger with them at the counter.
Awesome.
And we take a picture with them out front and then we put up, they sign a card, they put it on the wall. Every month it changes and it's gone. The Doodle Burger is gone at the end of this month.
Yeah. And there's so many of these. At least I could, from looking at all your shows, there's so many of them that you can do this for a long time.
I've got the next basically 3 years planned.
It's nuts. What, by the way, the Theta Burger, what is that Johnny sauce?
Aha! There you go. This goes back to the original thing I was just talking about. That's the same sauce. That's that freaking sauce that went to the Apple Pan and then went to the Goody Goody in Tampa. This is the sauce. It's the comeback. It's the original comeback sauce.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool. What's next month's burger?
I can't tell you what we're doing. We partnered with somebody important to do a very, very special burger. And I can't tell you what it is, but it'll all make sense on October 2nd. But the next burger after that is going to be the steamed cheeseburger from Ted's in Meriden, Connecticut. And we're going to borrow one of their huge steaming cabinets and put it right in the front of the restaurant.
What's that burger about?
So the steamed cheeseburger is from factory times in the 30s and 40s. I'm sorry, the 50s in Meriden, Connecticut. Meriden was known for they had 24-hour factories pumping out mostly silver, and there were clock factories up there and furniture factories. But there were tons of them. There were many factories and lots of factory workers, and they all had to eat all shifts. And some guy came up with the idea of something unique just to keep the burgers warm, I guess. He steamed them in the somehow steaming contraption where you take beef and you press it into like a small tin. The tin goes into a steaming cabinet. It's just powered by like a stovetop, water. And it's basically a steaming cabinet, almost like a smoker, but made with steam. You put these burgers and they cook for about 15 minutes in this, and almost like a little block a block of gray matter, and you put that on a bun. And what they also do is they take the same little holder for the beef and they put cheese into it, cheddar cheese. And the cheddar cheese becomes this like sort of molten goo. And you pour the molten goo over the block of beef, and it is fantastic.
That sounds really good.
Crazy burger.
This is like, I mean, this is going to go on for forever, man. It's
going to go on for a while. I have a great crew too. If it hadn't been for the great crew, I was actually very afraid that I'm going to start changing this burger up every month. People are going to be like, "What are you doing, man?" And they actually get very excited when we post the SOP for each burger, the standard operating procedure for each burger. They all gather around and they take notes, and some of them actually like take notes, take photos. They all the cooks want to make sure that they're going to get it exactly right. I walk away, and I guarantee I can spend 24 hours after we introduce the burger. Everyone in the restaurant understands the SOP and can make it perfectly every single time.
Yeah. I bet a lot of that is because the why behind it is there. You know, like you learn to make something just because someone showed you how. It's very different from like, hey, here's the history behind this thing. Here's why it's cool. Here's why it's important. Here's who like invented it. It helps. I bet that helps them remember and get excited so much more.
They also see the fans coming in. They see people coming in going like, "Oh, I'm so excited for the Doodle Burger. Oh my God, I haven't had it in 16 years." Or, "Wow, I can't believe I'm from Oklahoma and this burger, I get this burger here in New York. That's amazing." So
yeah.
But my employees, my crew, the kitchen crew sees this happening because we're all facing forward. We're an open kitchen, and they get very excited about it, I think.
I bet. Yeah, when in New York, you have so many people from other places that, you know, you have an endless supply of people that'll get excited about that. Are there plans to scale to more locations?
That's a great question. Ooh, look at the time. I got to run. I can tell you there's not really a plan yet.
Yeah.
But I can tell you we'd like to. The party line is, I would like to do this when we're ready. You know, I've done everything when I was ready. You know, I move a little slower than everybody else. You know, I try to explain to people like it's not, you know, I don't need to rush into anything. You know, we've got something great going. If this was the only place we had, I'd be the happiest guy in the world. Which means we're going to move at a very, very deliberate pace to get if we do another location. Choosing the right location takes a long time, but we do have the plan. We have the template now. And I just told someone in the restaurant today, someone said, if you were going to replicate, what would it look like? And I said, you're looking at it. It would be exactly like this. The only thing is the difference between our location now and any place else we would go is that if you've seen it, there are these huge windows in the front of the right where the counter is. And from the outside at dusk, my restaurant actually looks like Nighthawks, the Edward Hopper's Nighthawks, a version of it. And if you stand across the street at dusk and look in, it gives you chills. It's like, oh, we actually kind of created, a living piece of a very important part of American art history.
Yeah.
But it's real. You can walk in and get a real burger. And it's not so sad looking.
Yeah. No, it's gorgeous. You have this restaurant, but you have a bunch of other stuff going on as well. Like, what else is taking up your time right now?
Well, I'm trying to finish my 6th book right now. My editor is not so happy with me, but she's fine. She's like, okay. I have promised to get it in very soon. It's become a real beast. I mean, writing books are one thing, but I'm actually writing a book. We're doing research on the road. I finished all the research, but I'm just now trying to put all the pieces together. I've got thousands of pages of handwritten notes and photos all over the place. Once it all comes together, it'll be a beautiful book again. It's the 4th version of Hamburger America, the guidebook, but it's a beast. We're up to 225 restaurants, 225 great hamburger joints that you need to go to. And it's been wild. You know, like I've been on the phone trying to update the restaurants, and I found out that one of my friends died. I didn't even know, from a hamburger place. She passed away very young, the same age. So it kind of threw me. I was trying to write last night. I had to stop writing. So thrown by it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's probably I have to make these updates. So, how's it going? Still the same bun? How's so and so? Like, oh, they passed. Oh no, you only open on Saturdays. What's going on? You know, so all the information is constantly changing. So
yeah,
this guidebook. So that's going on. We're also I've been traveling a lot because I keep getting, we're still backed up from the pandemic. I was traveling like a crazy person before the pandemic.